Well, 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 look who we have with us today. My good friend Paul from What the Flock TV. How are you, brother?
Not too bad. See, it's funny seeing you on your own.
Yeah, well, it's where Harry is in California. It'll be 3 o'clock in the morning right now, so
Yeah.
he'll be well away. So how's things over there in the sunny UK?
It's not too bad. We've had like some not major compared to around the world. It's not major, but you know what I mean. Over here, you get a half inch of snow or a 10 mile an hour wind, and it's like end of the world.
Yeah,
So we've had a few mini storms. Like the last couple of weekends, blew fences down, stuff's gone all over the place, and obviously we have that little inconvenience of a pandemic in full throw. So it's just a normal. It seems to be like a normal everyday occurrence now. So you just get on with it, don't you?
yeah. Well, it's been going on now for 2 years. Allegedly, it started over here in China. Um,
Yep.
but you know,
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly. But here, I mean, nobody gives a shit. You got to wear a mask when you go into the supermarket. You got to put one on when you go in the supermarket. As soon as you're through the door, you just put it down. Nobody cares. And if you go into a bank, you got to wear one. I mean, who would have thought, that you got to wear a mask when you go into the bank?
Yeah.
So nobody goes to the bank, and that's
You know
it.
what I thinking on that is I believe they're like suppressing media about people robbing banks because I've hardly seen any occurrence of people robbing banks, and you would think if you were a villain, this is the best time. You can wear a face mask, walking in, walking out, no cameras outside will pick you up, and you're hearing nothing like that out on the news. It's like they're withheld in it. It's very suspicious, isn't it?
There was a story over here a couple of weeks ago where a guy, a multi-millionaire, rang the bank and he ordered 5 million yuan in cash, right? And they would have all been in 100 yuan notes. He placed his order up front. 2 or 3 days later, he went in to pick it up. So it was all there, it was all ready for him, but they insisted that he put a face diaper on. So he said, fine. So he went to the counter and he said, count it. What? Count it. You made me put a mask on. I'm going to stand here while you count it. And he made the cashier count by hand 5 million yuan.
That is what a guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Chinese people are quite compliant anyway, complacent anyway. Um, but yeah, he was having none of it. He said, no, screw you. So
I mean, to be honest, we've known like Asian people have worn masks for a long time, haven't
yeah,
they? Due to
yeah.
smog and stuff. So it's not exactly a big transition for them. I mean, to be honest, if you'd have told me 5 years ago, put a mask on, because people are coughing in your face or sneezing or farting, or they just smell like, disgusting, you probably have put it on anyway just to get away from the smell. But we know they don't do nothing. It's just so funny how people are just very compliant, very easy with little evidence of any type of fact. It's scary, to be honest.
It is, but people see what they want to see. Um, what was that Simon and Garfunkel song? Bridge over, was it not Bridge Over Troubled Water? People hear what they want to hear and disregard the rest, or people see what they want to see and disregard the rest. I forget the exact lyrics, but it's perfectly true. I mean, let me give you an example. I haven't kind of prepared this um, for our chat. It's just something that I found on um, on my laptop, and I thought, well, let's just let's just give it a go and see what people see. Lark, as in a bit of fun. I mean, what do you see there, Paul?
I've not saw that in a long time. That's what I've not saw. Obviously, Sunkiss, yeah.
No, obviously Sunkissed. No, it's not Sunkissed. Look again.
Sinkissed,
Yeah,
Sinkissed.
yeah, yeah. It's not a U, it's an I. Just doesn't have
Yeah.
a dot over it.
That's
Uh,
your eyes doing the little trick that they do. They
yeah,
join, don't they? They join the ends and the beginning and the end. and they complete the sentence for you.
Yeah, it actually says sinkist. I mean, and people foolishly, because we've been indoctrinated to, they call it hidden in plain sight. It's not hidden; it's there.
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, I'm not into religion by any stretch of the imagination, but what does the Bible say about with those with eyes to see and ears to hear, and also nothing shall be nothing hidden that shall not be made manifest. I mean, it's right there in front of your nose. It clearly says that it's clearly an I and not an N, but people see an N because they want to.
And that's funny you could talking about this, because one of my first ever videos that I started to do a little bit different, and you're talking maybe 2.5 to 3 years ago. It's on my Odyssey. It's like so far down. It's one of the first ones I ever did. It was called the Truth Wavelength. And it was talking about, because people always say, like you just said, and I've said, and countless people who are going to watch this later have always said, it's hidden in plain sight. Well, it's true. It's not hidden in plain sight. It's just there. We just can't see it.
Yeah.
And everything, according to who with the so-called truthers or whoever, it says basically everything's a frequency and energy in a wave. And if it's a wave and it travels in waves, that's why I come up with the truth wavelength, basically, because we only see in red, green, and blue, they say.
Yeah.
Because obviously we have to take their science to degree for a lot of things and then base, on what we can find. So if they say we see in red, green, and blue, and then in the middle it all merges to make white, basically, if certain things are in a different type of frequency or wavelength, like you got ultraviolet, infrared, and all stuff that we can't actually see because we're only seeing certain wavelengths. So you don't know like what you're actually seeing out in society. It's like that film. Oh, what's it called now? Hellboy. It might be number 1 or 2, and he goes to the troll market, and the entrance is really there, but they just can't see him, and you have to have special glasses to pull down to actually see something that's in a different phase or shift or light. Because it's just crazy how people just dismiss something ridiculous. I mean, 10 years ago, maybe, I don't know when you so-called seeing things for a different light, you would actually say, oh my God, that person is nuts. And then once you break that, I call it the aha moment, or the crystal, where you get switched on inside you and you just see it and you're like, oh my God, you just see everything in a different light. And it's just amazing when you have that moment. I mean, I've always been, well, not weird. I've always been how I am from birth, because my mum was really open. She showed me different things. She talked about fairies, folklore. I was brought up when I was younger in Germany, in the Black Forest. We used to be going camping a lot. Obviously, that's where basically the Grim Tales comes from. So I was brought up on the darker side of all the folklore.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? All that type of thing. And because my dad was in the army. So obviously I've moved about all around the world, seen different tales, different stories, and I've always been open. You know what I mean? I don't know if you saw one of my old videos. I was like 12, was it 12 or 11? And was doing a discussion at school. I had to stand up, and it was about Atlantis. I mean, considering it's not supposed to exist, supposedly, it is and it isn't. You know what I mean? School, why would it be in the curriculum if, there's not physical evidence?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, oh, what do you think Atlantis is, Paul, and all this? And I was talking about, how the philosophers say it's past the Pillars of Hercules. That's where I was born, in fact. I was born on the Pillars of Hercules in Gibraltar. So there's the pillars. And I said, no, I believe the actually entire world is Atlantis. In the sense that we were sunken or in a cave, because the sky, the stars don't look right to me. And that's at 12. I didn't have no internet then, because obviously it was way before we even had mobile phones and communication. And I was just looking at books and different things. So I've always been different. I've been very open. If someone says to me, I can see angels or pixies, fair enough. I don't go. Do you know what I mean? And that's just
like you. I mean, I've always, even when I was like 5 years old, I've always been the black sheep of the family. And I think there's a reason for that. We just don't take things on face value. But it's like I came up with this test, Paul. You're gonna love this, right? This is the test for the BS19, right? Now, what you do, you get a bottle of beer and you get a glass, and you pour some beer into the glass. And what you do is you smell it. Yeah, I can smell that. And then you taste it. Yeah, I can taste that. So clearly, I'm okay. And do you know what the best thing about that? Last night, I tested myself 19 times, Paul.
Tell you what, you do your
19
thing for
times.
health and safety.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, let me just show you something else that we've been lied to about, since we were kids. What you do is you want to borrow some money from the bank, right? And we're told that the money that we borrow comes from, somebody else's savings account. So this dude goes and plots £1,000, $1,000 or whatever into his bank. They keep 100 and they can loan out 900, right? So they loan out 900. So at this point in time, the bank has got, or there is 1900, but the bank only has 100. So this guy borrows 900 and puts it in his bank. They keep 10% and they loan out 810. At this point, there's 2,710 in the system, but the bank only has 190, 100 here and 90 here. Yeah. And then the same thing happens. This guy goes and plonks that in. They keep 81 and they loan out 729. So at this point, there's $3,439 in the system, but the bank only has 271. So what happens when number one goes into the bank and wants to withdraw the $1,000 that he put in a couple of weeks ago, when in the system there's only $271? Where does the bank get the $1,000 from to pay him back? They have to create it. They literally create it out of thin air because it doesn't exist. In reality, it doesn't exist.
That's what they call it, a house of cards. It's just crazy type of system, isn't it?
And I think that's why the world is going through what it's going through right now, because the whole system is screwed.
Yeah.
Why would a car manufacturer have a symbol of a serpent or a snake eating a human? How many people drive around in an Alfa Romeo in the UK and don't even see it? And they'll sit there and they'll polish that badge when they're cleaning their car on a Sunday morning, and they never even notice that it's a serpent eating a human. I mean, what's that all about?
And they don't even know. And what the best thing is, they don't even realize that the flag is not the English flag.
Yeah.
That's what the funny thing is. For when I found it, you're like, no. And for people who watch you, because the people who the subs and people who watch you watch me, and vice versa. Obviously, no, the English flag that is shown half of the Alfa Romeo is a Genoese flag.
Yeah.
And England, the king at the time, paid them for the right to use it. And obviously, even today, they still want to they still want it to come back to Genoa. And what's funny is their bank, the first actual shady federal bank, what you just talked about, like the Federal Reserve type thing, the Rothschild state type of banks, was called St. George, who is obviously the crest is, ablazing to him, and obviously the Templars.
Yeah.
So it just intrigues me that all things connect in a way, and that's why we do what we do. And it's weird, isn't it? Because when we're talking about the truth and wavelengths and how we see the truth, people don't seem to understand. Obviously, a majority do, because we have good connection with a lot of people. But some of them, people just think, well, no, you're wrong because you're wrong. And I'm like, I mean, some of the comments I've had, I've had the same issue what you've had, because I watched your video the other day and people are actually accusing you of deleting. They have no clue how bad YouTube are. You don't even see 80% of your comments. It is so ridiculous. And one guy said to me, "Neil, the same to you. Why you keep deleting my comments?" I said, "I'm not." I said, "Do you make content?" He went, "Yeah, in a way." He says, "Do YouTube delete your comments?" "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why are you actually giving me the grief then?" I just don't get it. People know YouTube are what they are. The only time I don't answer a comment is if you're being basically troll and if you like talking something so ridiculous, like, for instance, if I did a film on like bananas and you're talking about angels and whatever, it's something totally I won't answer because it's got nothing to do. Also, I heart it and different things like that. But I only never don't answer someone who's being ridiculously trolling and negative. I'm not here. We do what we don't do what we do for money. We do it because we love it, and in the intriguement and the actual anticipation of what we're going to find next, and that aha moment that makes us, wow, we can see the world in a different shape. We don't do it for fame.
We got a new subscriber today who left a comment and said, "I've just found your channel," and she was going through it. Julie, her name is, and some of the comments that she's been leaving, they're essays, right? And this girl is
Yeah, I know her.
way out there. And I'm like, well, I actually said you should write a book. I'm serious. Some of the stuff that she's commenting is like amazing. And that's what Harry and I try to encourage is to get people to give us the comments that are going to inspire us
Yeah.
to look into other things. And it really is, it's wonderful. But when you get people coming on talking or complaining about stuff that's got nothing to do with anything, it kind of gets a little bit boring. But one of our subs, Lovegood, she emailed me today and she said, "Nige, go and look at the conversation between me and whoever it was on number 87." Because I put a number next to the videos that Harry and I do. And I went to the channel and there's no conversation there. I took a screenshot, emailed it back to her, and she took a screenshot and emailed me what she was seeing on my channel. Yet I couldn't see it. So what is going on, bro? I have got no idea.
I mean, people don't they? People think you're being rude. It's not. You will try and answer every comment that's humanly possible. For instance, if I click on my phone now and I've got a notification, I'll click on it and it'll take me to nowhere. It won't show nothing. I go into the computer, you do see a little bit more, but then again, stuff doesn't appear.
No.
It's not social media, it's anti-social media. They don't want you to connect with certain comments.
Well, what people need to understand is that if you log on, right, you signed into YouTube, you make a comment, and I can't see that comment, you can't see that comment, but they can. They think that we're ignoring them. But what they need to do is literally sign out of their account, right, and then go back to the channel, and they will not see their comment. But because they're logged in, because they're signed in, it's all to do with your IP address, which is why I use not only because I'm in China, but which is why I use this. Because every time I log in and I go through wherever I go through, you actually get a different IP address. So you can't be tracked or followed, right? So that's why I always put the link in the show notes. We get, they give us 30% off for promoting it, and everybody gets 30% off, right? It's $70 a year, and 30% be $21, so it's like $49 a year, and you can put it on 2 devices. So you could put it on your phone and your laptop, you could put it on one of your devices, and your friend or your mum or your brother or whatever could put it on their device, and you could actually share the cost, $25 a year each. It's absolutely nothing. But that's another way of kind of hiding your IP address, because if I'm logged in through right now, I'm going through Denmark, and I can't see a comment, or I can see my comment if I go into the VPN and change the country that I'm going through, right? Now I can't see the comment because I've got a different IP address. That's kind of how it all seems to work. But let me just drop back into this presentation, or if you want to call it that. There's only like 20 slides or something. So we question this. Why do people not see that it's a human being eaten by a snake? This is one that, memes. I love them. I absolutely love memes. And yeah, the science is all bullshit, all of it. A fact checkers meeting. I mean, you I wonder who pays the fact checkers, Paul.
Yeah.
This is from February last year in China. February last year. So and where are we? What are we? Like 21 months later.
Yeah.
This tickled me. A nurse readying her team to deal with the new moronic Manitoba. Oh, it's so terrible in Manitoba. What can one say? This one really cracked me up. I walked in and his friends were doing it to themselves. This is the unity we need. Now, guys, you can pause and look at and read these yourself. I'm not gonna read them, but a huge thanks to Genetically Modified, who emailed me these. I don't know who put them together. I know she didn't, but they are. Just pause the video and read these things, because at the end of the day, if you look at the halo around the head, just as I showed, back here, none of it is real. None of it is real. They just allowed to print it. And then you've got this thing.
What's funny about memes is originally I used to hate them, and then once you get into them, you end up making them if you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously, I've been in a position to have memes that have gone viral.
Wow.
And it's so funny seeing them when people don't know. I mean, the one that's gone the most viral for me is, and you'd have all seen it, is Bill Gates with Freddy Krueger's fingers.
Yep.
Syringes. That was mine. And
Oh,
you're having you're having celebrities posting it and everything. It's like, why didn't you tag it? I said, well, you can actually see when I do a meme, I always put like a ghost image, and it's hard to see, but I'm known as hashtag the meme man, not me made it. People give me that name. So it's just so funny to see them, and you're seeing them on all over the place, and who's made this, and you can just see it slightly at the bottom, obviously, me tag for it. But yeah, I used to hate it at the beginning. Then once you get into them, because they can be very, very powerful. Do you mean it's an
I think
image?
without a doubt, yeah. I think without a doubt they are very, very powerful. You've slipped up there now, Paul, because anytime I want a meme creating, I'm gonna send you an email. Got any plans for today? Do nothing. You did that yesterday, didn't finish. Love it. This is a real photograph. This is a real photograph. You cannot make this up.
No, you can't.
You know what I mean? And we wonder why people are, can I use the word stupid? Is stupid the correct word to use in a situation like this, bro? I mean, what the hell is this dude thinking?
I know. He's only got a slightly slip and he's a goner.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
I love this one. I had to throw this one in. I slept with 3 guys before I met you. Oh God, I was only 20 minutes late. Oh, they're such fun, aren't they?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I said, get to the point.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get any more truthful than this. And when it comes to history, I'll show you something in a minute. They swabbed my ass and it came back positive. I've got climate change. This is I'm not sure if you're familiar with Off Guardian. I mean, I kind of keep my eye on it because they You know, there are usually or quite often some really, really good, truthful articles on there. I mean, many of the guys that write here, they're what you would call kind of awake, but they don't seem, for the most part, they don't seem to be as awakened as, you know, many of our, you know, our subs that will be watching this video. But they
We-
kind of clued up. They know what's going on. I don't need to put a link. Anybody can go to Off Guardian. This was written from on December the 1st by a guy called Greg Maybury. Now, Greg Maybury taught history in Australia in high school for, I don't know, 30 years, whatever it was. It was a long time. He was a high school history teacher. And in this article, he actually wrote, as a former teacher of history, I can safely say all this. And what he's referring to here is everything he's written up until this point. For that matter, as a former teacher of the only subject that really matters, I can just as safely say virtually everything I taught my students over the years is bollocks. Now, what would you say to that, Paul? What would you say to that? From a
If it
high
was a student of his, I'd ask for me to remark. But yeah, it is funny because obviously you, me, we love history. And people do, you know, obviously he would feel like he's wasted majority of his life,
yeah,
maybe. And hopefully he doesn't forget that him being the way he is maybe have changed people for the better just with his presence, you know what I mean? But people don't see that. But yeah, he would probably feel like I've wasted majority of my life. What's the, you know, how bad is this reality type of thing? It's
I
it's
agree. I agree. I think he must feel quite annoyed with himself. Although, you know, he would have been paid, you
yeah.
know, so oh yeah, just for the benefit of your guys, if you haven't seen this one, Copy and Pasted Reality, it's our most watched podcast. And the reason that the main reason that I put it there, Paul, is because even David Icke, love him or hate him, but even David Icke is now saying we live in a copy. We live in a simulated reality. It is a copy of the original. Have you watched the movie Free Guy, Paul?
I've not watched it yet. I've got it to watch.
You must watch it, bro, because they're telling you. They're telling you in that movie that we are living in a copy. It's blatant, absolutely blatant. Yeah, I mean, I won't give you
I mean,
any spoiler alerts, but
I agree with you, like, because obviously, we were talking just before we come on how like synchronicity and how some of our videos are overlapping, like we're getting it out before each other or the vice versa. I mean, I've obviously one of my biggest topics that I did was obviously the Great Vowel Shift.
yeah,
Now that to me is the period that to you, what you're talking about being copied and moved over is the period that it happened. It doesn't matter what people say. Well, what actually date is it? We can't tell you because if everything from reality has been wiped clean or copied and moved over, we can't work time off in the sense of all this and this. It's very hard because we can only work off what they're giving us. So that is why you're getting a lot of people in our community, so many different ideas because have you ever known that? And I always say that to people. People always say to me, how can you do this? There's only one truth. There's not. Look at the etymology and the word of truth. It doesn't mean a fact. It can contain some facts, but it's a belief.
yeah,
And it has the biggest thing in it. You.
yeah,
You is in truth. So it affects you more, but also it's a trap
yeah,
because it contains a rut.
yeah.
And people don't understand that. They say, oh, no, that's truth. No, there's fact. Fact is fact. Truth contains a little bit of those facts, but it's based on a belief.
Yeah. And belief is got LIE right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Belief, you know. I have this argument all the time, this conversation all the time with a really good mate of mine over here in China. He's from the UK as well. And he's like, Nigel, I'm not interested in your truth or my truth. I want the truth. And I'm like, you're never going to find the truth.
Nope.
It's my contention from my own research that the copy and paste happened around 500 years ago ish. There's a reason why 1492 is so prevalent and popular in American his story. But we kind of reckon it happened around 500 years ago, thereabouts.
That's not too far off the Great Vowel Shift.
No.
The Great Vowel Shift happened, I would say, 12th, 13th, so it's roughly not far too off, and it lasted to the early 19th. So it's like 500-600 years when science, religion, how we speak, everything was changed in that period. They changed, obviously, they brought in the J. And what's funny is I always tell people seem to like watch my videos and forget, and it's like, oh, Janos and all this. He didn't exist. The J doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I say, I know it doesn't. But did you know the guy who brought the J in, his name is a derivative of Janos. So the guy who actually brought the J in, Giano something, I was talking about it yesterday. His name is after Janus, and it was brought in the Great Vowel Shift. So that was why they shifted. You can call it copy, you can call it shift, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's the same type of thing. That period is when it happened for me. You just said it. A lot of people have talked about a different type of thing, but it's still in the rough type of period that we're talking about, and it's just
well, I know that you've watched some of our our stuff. It's when you look at the name or the word Jesus, for argument's sake, right? Well, if you look at the Spanish names Juan, Jose, they're spelt with a J, right? So if you apply that same logic to the name Jesus, you get Jesus, which is he's us, all of us. People talk about the return of Jesus. The return of the Christ consciousness is the awakening. If you are experiencing this awakening process, then that is the return of the Jesus, the Jesus.
I'm just laughing inside because I know what's coming next on my channel, and we're not a sync, but I'm redoing a video, and what you just mentioned of being Jesus, J-E, he's us. He is another form of something called who.
Yeah.
So who, you will know, but other people might not know. Who, according to a lot of people, is creation. I've done a lot of video. 3 years ago, I first did a video on it, and every now and again I come back because I've got more and more data on it, and obviously, and I can put a picture, a better paint a better picture. So you just mentioned he, Jesus, and you got who, and who is a lot of things, you know what I mean? And it goes in different religions. Obviously, we got it in our title of who we are, human. We also have the human residents, you know what I mean? And there's different varieties. You can go from the Celtic, you can go to Celtic, you can go to Chinese, you can go to all around the world. They all have a who. Arabic, Islam, all have a who. H-U. And that's what I'm doing next. But what's funny is one of the characters that who was a Welsh Celtic type of god, but it was also what's the word? You know how they have altar images? Some of them you'll just see is like human form, but one of these other images in Druid or Celtic, he's known as a certain someone called Cernunnos. And it's funny that because Cernunnos is obviously another epithet or whatever you want to call it of Janos, the horned god. You know what I mean? And it's just so funny how, when you're looking at a topic, and people always say to me, because people don't get it when I'm not talking about Janos, because it's like, no, it can't be that easy. And they said, just look, because it's weird. Their footprints, whenever you do anything, you always leave your mark. For instance, you're a teacher, how you teach will leave an effect, a mark on your pupils.
Yeah.
I make something, pottery, woodwork, I leave a bit of me with anything to do. And even these guys, evil Kabbalists, whatever you want to call them, will leave their mark. And people like us and other people who are watching today, tomorrow, whenever you put it out, they leave their mark also, and we can follow marks because it's a pattern. And that's why we see it a lot easier when you just show different things. You take your brain to just click into gear, different things. So we're all on our own gears, and then oh yeah, I can see it now, and that's what it is. We can see the patterns that they do.
Well, when you
And
when
some
you look at
people don't like it.
when you look at the word mark, I mean, it's got the word arc.
Yeah.
Even though it's ARK, but it's got the word arc, which is an arch, which is a whole a whole new subject. But it's funny that you mentioned the who and the he, because there's a quote from John Dee, Queen Elizabeth or Queen whatever
Yeah.
it was, and it says, and you can substitute who for he, right?
Yeah.
Who does not understand should either learn or be silent. And that applies to a lot of people on this platform who leave comments. But you could substitute that for he who does not understand should either learn or be silent. So again, you've got that who and he crossover where you can use one word or the other. I was doing an online class today with a senior student in another city, and we were talking about the difference between got, get, and have or had. Right? I will get my haircut. I will have a haircut. How you can substitute one word in English for another. And it's the same with words that are even obscure words, pronunciation and spelling, the way we spell a word. I mean, you ask a non-native English speaker to pronounce the word choir, as in a church choir, choir, and they're going to say choir or whatever, But words are spelled the way they're spelled for reasons of spells or spelling. You know what I mean? The magic wand. Even the word wand is an anagram of dawn, DAWN. When the sun rises, and everything's about spells and sun worship and so on and so forth. I mean, the rabbit hole is just so deep. But I, like you, I mean, I've studied the mud flood. I've studied Tartaria. The mud flood, I think, was deliberately caused, and I think that happened around 1812, which was hidden by the Napoleonic War, which, again, is, in my opinion, is nonsense. I mean, Napoleon had, I don't know, what was it, something silly like 200,000 soldiers, and how many thousands of horses and tanks, and not tanks, and cannons, and and somebody broke it down on YouTube and worked out that they'd need something like 20 tons of food per day just to feed the guys and the horses. You know what I mean? So the whole thing just does not make any sense whatsoever. But when it comes to Tartaria and the beautiful architecture, the cathode rails, cathedrals as we call them, with the big doors and the giant doors and windows and everything, you ain't going to find the answers. It's I say this often, Paul. It's like you searching your house for your car keys, right? You're looking everywhere for your car keys. You knew you put them on the shelf, but they're not there. Shit. So where are they? Well, if your car keys are in my pocket and I'm down the pub, you ain't going to find your car keys, bro. Right? So, but you're going to keep looking. And that's the distraction, I think, that that a lot of people have fallen for. They're looking for answers that are not to be found in this realm because it's a copy of the original. What do you say to that?
What people gets me is, and this is no disrespect to anyone who watches my stuff, your stuff. What I raise my eyebrow or roll my eyes back, whatever you want to call it, is when someone says, "I think you're talking a load of bollocks," and to be honest, it is their opinion. You know what I mean? It's their opinion. They see different things. But when they go, and it's actually this, I'm like, do you know history is all fabricated? You can't use your fabrication to beat my fabrication in a conquer match. It doesn't work. Everything is a lie. Everything is someone's opinion. So you cannot say, well, I got my information, say, from 10 sources, 11 sources. Well, my sources, I got 12 sources, 13 sources, so mine must be right. No, everything is a fabrication. You can't beat it. You're just butting heads. You can't. It's just how you interpret the information makes it different. And when I make my videos, I try and look at things a little bit different and see if I can find something, because I don't want to hardly watch. I watch you and maybe in another one or two channels, because what happens in this community is you get a, oh, well, you're taking your ideas from that. No, you don't need to be sat in the same room talking about the same subjects to actually put a video out that you may cover or I may cover and that you've just put out, because you prove it. I mean, last 4 videos, not in succession, but you said we was talking, you and your brother was going to release it, and it's like, people, we only have so many ideas, and it's how we connect it, and we should just, ego does my head in. Wherever he goes, I go. You know what I mean? Every one of us have got an ego. It's just we have to. Some of us just basically are able to, hold it back or use common sense. I mean, that's not in the community anymore. On a whole, common sense. It's like spotting people fighting.
Yeah.
That's why I just stick to myself and keep out the way, because I'm just letting the shells go over my head. But on history itself, I mean, just look at it. I got ridiculed like you've never seen it on my Janos research, because the last 3 years I've been talking about it. Obviously, with a pandemic on, I've been showing people the first case reported, so-called, allegedly, was in China in December. That's when you do your vows to Janos, because obviously they moved it January 1st. You do your New Year's resolutions. They're your vows. So the first vow was in December, right? This is COVID. It come blah, 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 blah. And it's funny that the first not vaccine, the first so-called virus strain was actually Wuhan HU. And the first so-called alleged death was in January the 11th. That, to me, you can't get it. It could have been the 12th, it could have been the 9th, it could have been, it's not. It's all a ritual to him. Doesn't mean I'm right and other theories don't match, because this is just my opinion of what I've seen. But when you put a mask on, you become two-faced. When it is crazy how people just.
I've come across someone doing some research on Janus, and whenever I see anybody mention Janus, I always refer them to your channel, because I'm like, Paul is the king when it comes to Janus. But this person is doing a comparison between Janus and Enki and Enlil. Enki and Enlil being the quote unquote brothers or half brothers, right? And when you think of the half brother with the two faces, the Janus, is it possible that Janus is, or Enki and Enlil actually represent Janus?
Yep, I've done it in my videos, because the oldest name that I've found for Janos is a god or a king called IA.
Yeah,
I've showed it.
Yeah.
It's appeared in books. It's appeared in my videos, and obviously people Enki can sometimes be known as EA, but this is showing you basically it could be them. So IA, and it actually says underneath, most god names, Ianos, Uranus, Jehovah, Yahweh, all come from this god, and his name's IA. Reverse it, you get AI.
Well, now this is really, really interesting. But before I tell you what it is said that the name of Enlil was shortened to El, right? And we know that El allegedly means God. Now, if you look at the capital of a certain country, I think that the capital is Tel Aviv, right?
Yeah.
Don't know how you pronounce it, Aviv. But if you look at that in reverse, or the second part in reverse, you get Viva, and Viva in certain languages, French, I think, Spanish, whatever, means long live. And then you've got the L with the T representing the 20th letter, or the cross, you know, the crucifix.
I've got it there. That
So,
anyone needs to see. You can actually see it. The
yeah,
King,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
King name and then you see underneath all the
yeah,
names it comes from it.
yeah,
Janus is one of them. Uranus,
yeah,
Yahweh, Yahweh,
yeah,
which is
Yove, yeah,
Jupiter
yeah. Well,
indicates.
when
So
you think of Yahweh, right? Now, I've done this in a podcast a long time ago now, and many of our news subs might not have seen it. But what fascinated me, or what blew my mind, was, you know, how growing up in the West, we are taught, quote unquote, God is love, right? God is love, love is God. Well, interestingly enough, here in China, the word for love is I, well, Aini, I love you. And if you write that out, it's actually spelled in pinyin, AI. God is love. Love in China is I. You can't make this up. There are several people. I'm sure you're familiar with the Crater Earth guy, God Gev Lampster channel.
I do know him, but I've not seen any videos. People always like. What's funny, that I am called by a few people the UK and that guy Google Vast or whatever his name is,
God, God, God.
Godvaj or whatever.
Yeah, the unpronounceable. Most people call him the Crater Earth guy, but it's God, GOD GEVLAMSTE. God Gev Lance. Yeah, where he got the name from, I don't know. But he talks a lot about the Benben stone, and in his latest video, and he's mentioned this many times, that he's convinced that Yahweh is an artificial intelligence. And I'm pretty sure that, and don't quote me on this, and don't start shouting at me because I quote David Icke. I mean, we all know what David Icke is, but David Icke puts out some awesome information that cannot be debunked. And he's also pretty convinced that the Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, is essentially AI. Are they telling us, Paul, when they say God is love, and in Chinese, love is
God is
AI?
AI, yeah.
You know.
I'm just trying to find something to show you about that. I did a video because we make videos. Obviously, you do a different format to me, but it's still, a video podcast, whatever you want to call it. What I talked about, I don't know if you ever watched Tron, the second one. There's a program called Clue, and basically the programmer, God in it, he created Clue to run the place for him, and he basically wanted to, run it himself. So that's what I'm aligning at. Got the God is like a program running it for the career, because someone would have had to create the program, the AI. You know what I mean? To run us in. And I did a lot of in one of my videos. I'm just trying to find it.
Well, if you
When
watch that movie Free Guy, it's telling you in that, that we live in a copy, that the God of this realm is the copier. And there's an awesome little truth drop that people don't kind of, a lot of people miss. And I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert, because it's not really a spoiler alert. But there's a point in the movie where the God is in the room where everything's being controlled from, right? And he sits on the floor, right? And then he kind of lays back, yeah, on his back. And I don't know what it's called, but when you're lying on the floor or you're sitting on the floor, you try and bounce up, you try and throw your legs so that you can stand up. Well, he tries and he can't do it, so he has to put his hand on the ground and stand up. And that is showing you, in my opinion, and Harry agrees with me, we both caught this independently of each other, that they're showing you that the God of this realm is not the omnipotent, know everything, can do everything kind of God that people think he is. And again, what is that quote in the Bible when when the God turns around to Cain and says, "Where's your brother?" And Cain says, "I'm not. Am I my brother's keeper? You're God. You're supposed to know everything. Why don't you know where my brother is?" Kind of thing. And you've probably got to watch Free Guy at least twice to pick up on all of the truth drops that are in that movie. And another one that I promote quite a lot is, have you seen the Adjustment Bureau from
I have, yeah.
2008? Yeah. And they're telling you there that our lives are scripted, right? And I've proven that myself dozens of times, that my life is completely scripted. We are living in a script.
And what did he go through?
A portal.
He had to go through doorways.
Yeah, doorways, which is 11.
Always a doorway.
11. Yeah, which is 11. But have you seen Sausage Party?
I have, yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. And I think the biggest wow for me was, do you remember the druggie, the junkie, who shoots himself up with heroin or whatever it is, and he gets high, and then suddenly he can interact with the food. He can talk to the sausage and you know what I mean? If you haven't seen it, guys, it's a bit like Toy Story. The toys can interact with themselves, but they can't interact with the humans. Well, it's the same in Sausage Party. They're all products in a supermarket, and they can all talk to each other, and they look on the customers as being gods. And they want to go to the great outdoors, which is outside the supermarket, not realizing that they are actually food. So this guy, he's a druggie. He shoots himself up, and when he's in the higher state, whatever you want to call it, when he's high, he can interact with the food, and he actually sits there and says, "I will never eat food again," because he realizes that food is, quote unquote, alive. Food, anything we eat, Paul, you go out in the garden and pull an apple off the tree, it's alive.
Yeah, I have this argument, because again, I'm not criticizing anyone, because people generally take offense rather quick. But we have people who criticize people who eat meat.
Yep.
And I go to people who are vegetarian or vegan. I say, you do realize even the plants have thoughts and are alive, because it's been proven in the Baxter effect.
Yep.
So basically, you're eating something that has a thought process, essentially like an animal.
Yep.
I mean, originally we would not have, eat what we class as food, because everything is alive. That's why we always say, and how in tradition, they always pray over the food to say something positive, because it's dead, it's been killed, and you're changing the frequency of the food.
Yep.
It's not hidden, but people just want to jump and argue over the little things, like how I got my original name, because obviously YouTube got my channel took down, but I was the Black Sheep Researcher, and for anyone who didn't know, that was what I used to be called, and that came from a negative comment, because I was in communities showing a theory for how this world is, because I used to draw maps, everything. Some of the stuff now that we're seeing, I was talking about people using in their videos, and it's the same old thing. They seem to forget where they get it from. But what the thing is people were telling me I was a devil spawn because I had an imagination. I just don't get it. I'm the devil because I have a brain and I'm trying to theorize, and that's a bad thing. So that's how I got the name, the Black Sheep. And then I thought, well, I like to research.
I have the same problem. I mean, people are looking at this now. They see the Devil's Playground. Well, it's now the Devil's Playground 2, for the number 2, for the same reason. And people have said, why? Not on my channel or our channel, but on other people's channels. Why do you call yourself the Devil's Playground? Because that's where we live, guys. We're living in a theme park. We're living in the Devil's Playground. I mean, it really is that simple. But getting back to the plants and fruits and stuff, if you're familiar with Genesis 2:7, the creation of Adam and Eve, where it says God made man from the dust of the ground and blew into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. So your soul, I would argue, is your life essence, The fact that you are physically alive means that you have a life essence, and therefore you have a soul. Well, if you take that to the next level and talk about plants being alive, if they have a living essence, they have a soul as well. And is that where we get the word morsel from? More soul. I mean, a morsel, according to the dictionary, is literally a single mouthful of food,
Yeah.
right? So if you got a lump of bread and you pull up a piece of bread you put in your mouth, that's a morsel. So does the word morsel come from more soul? And then you've got to take that to another to the next step with spirits, alcoholic spirits. I mean, you want to make a wine. Well, what do you make wine from? You're making it from grapes. You're pulling the spirit, the soul, out of the grapes. Or the vodka, you're pulling it out of the potato. Is that, I mean, people say, oh no, it's called a spirit because when you drink it, when you get drunk on, I mean, my ex brother-in-law, you could get as drunk as you like with him on anything, unless it was vodka. If he got drunk on vodka, bro, he turned into an animal, big time. He was horrible. It was literally like he was possessed by something else. So yeah, quite possibly it has the dualistic meaning that you can be possessed, because whenever I get drunk, I'm just stupid. I just laugh. I just take the piss out of people, and I don't get nasty or get into fights or any of that kind of thing. I tend to go the opposite. But there are people. I mean, we both know people, Paul, who get drunk and they just turn into an obnoxious piece of shit, and they just want to fight everybody. But again, you've got that soul and you've got that spirit connection with what we are consuming. Everything we consume was alive at one time. Even if it's bread, wheat was alive, barley, rice, everything was alive at one time. So we're consuming that life essence, whether it be the soul or the spirit,
My brain just works so differently. Like I said, I have dyslexia and all that, and I'm just starting to read more now when I can. I do find it hard. But what's funny is if I can do what I call spell etymology, I always say to people, just look at words differently and don't go off, because obviously you do English, obviously the grammar and all that. I do find hard, I must admit, but I'm just doing it my own. It's just for my purposes, because when I do a video and I see something, I want to put that out, and people always love to say, well, I don't see it. Well, there's no offense. If you don't see it, you don't see it. I mean, like, for instance, you were talking about Cain before. Well, it's funny because I was talking to someone last week and I was talking about when a teacher marks a work, they are marking Mark Cain, the mark of Cain. And that's how I ended up to do the video on the swastika, asking, is that the mark of God or mark of Cain?
yes,
Because it says in the Bible, it's his name, YH, WH.
The swastika, without a shadow of a doubt, is the mark of Cain. Absolutely. And I've known that for a long time. If you look at if you're familiar with the Bible and you know that Cain, according to the Bible, allegedly went out all over the earth and set up new cities and communities and everything else, and the swastika is found in all over
cities,
this. So without a shadow of a doubt, the swastika is the mark of Cain. But to be honest, Paul, it was not until I started teaching English to foreign students that you have no choice but to look at English through a different set of eyes, because you're trying to explain what words mean. You're breaking those words down into their separate syllables, or like government, govern, to rule, meant, mine, that kind of thing. Stuff that native English speakers would never ever see if they if they didn't actually take the time to break those words down and look at the meaning. And I do it with Chinese as well, because there's so many words in Chinese that if you break them down, we just give them a meaning. right? I mean, the younger generation, today, you ask them what the word gay means, and they say, oh, it means homosexual. Well, no, it means happy. It means brightly colored. Don we now our gay apparel. La 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 la.
Yeah.
It means happy or brightly colored, but it's been hijacked,
Yeah.
right? There are many words in China that some make sense and some don't when you break them down. One that springs to mind that you might find a connection is a huo chi. Well, huo means fire and chi means car. So the breakdown actually means fire car. But if you ask a Chinese person what is huo chi, they'll say it's train, which is what it is. Yeah, you're going to the Horchajan, the train station. But in reality, Horcha means fire car. Yeah.
So obviously, how did you get over there in the first place anyway? Because I've known a
Oh,
few friends of mine who ended up over there, being teachers in different topics. How did you? Oh no, how long have you been there? Like, 'cause I've always wanted to ask.
7 years. I came here at the end of
Uh,
2014. Well, what happened? I mean, we emigrated from the UK to Australia back in 2000, and I was a TV engineer at the time. And this gets back to the RGB, the red, green, and blue, because in the old tube, you only have three drivers, three
yeah.
primary colors, red, green, and blue, and that's what gives you all the colors. But then, of course, the arse fell out of that when people were, the industry became throwaway. So I had my own swimming pool business. We used to build swimming pools, and in countries where swimming pools are common, they have to be fenced. You have to have a safety fence, and we used to make the fences, build the fences, install the
Yeah.
fences. And then I got into the idea of glass pool fences. Well, glass pool fences in Australia were like mega bugs. You gotta be ultra rich. So I was actually the first person in West Australia to import glass pool fences from China. Um, and we made a lot of money back in those days. I'm going back to 2007, 2008. And then I got other people asking me, well, what else can you get from China? We used to build houses
Yeah.
as well for ourselves. And I used to get bathrooms and showers and windows and ceramic tiles and all this from China. So pretty soon, other people started asking me, "Hey, can you get me this? Can you get me that?" So I set up a separate business called Buy China, BUY, Buy China. We had a big website and so on and so forth. Anyway, a few years later, by 2012, I was actually coming to China pretty much on a monthly basis to go and visit various factories to take
Yeah.
back samples to customers. And, this one's this much and this one's this much. Which one do you want? And it was so weird, Paul, because I've been to over 50 cities in 30 provinces in China over the years. And the amount of people that I met, they used to say, "Why don't you come to China and teach English?" And I would look at them and go, "Why would I want to do that? I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing." Um, but then in 2013, the whole thing went pear shaped when my marriage basically broke up after 29 years. There's another 11 there, by the way. Um, and pretty much lost everything. You know how it works in the West. She walked away with just under $1 million Australian dollars in cash, and I walked away with a suitcase full of clothes and an 8-year-old laptop, kind of thing. And no, I actually don't care. You know what I mean? It's probably the best thing that ever happened to me was losing everything. Um, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do now? But the seeds had been planted by many people in
Yeah.
China. And I thought, okay, well, what have I got to do? So I looked into it, and okay, you got to go and study this, and you've got to get this qualification, that qualification. And to be honest, Paul, English was the only subject that I was ever really any good at when I was at school. I was crap at everything except English. I was always kind of, virtually top of the class
Yeah.
in English. So I did the yards, and then I applied. I went to an agency, and he went, "Yeah, come on over. And I've been here ever since. Best thing I ever did. But that's kind of how it happened. And it's so weird that I mean, there must have been 30, 40 people over the years that had said to me, hey, Nigel, why don't you come and teach English in China? I'm like, but then the seeds were planted. I mean, you know, we say our lives are scripted. So that's literally why it happened, because I was supposed to be where I am right now, the same as you're supposed to be where you are. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And to be honest with you, do I wish I'd done it 20 years ago? Sometimes I think I wish I'd done it 20 years ago. But then if I had, I wouldn't have had the experience that I had with the swimming pools and the pool fences and the big house and the four-wheel
But it
drive
makes you
and
what
the
you are,
boat.
doesn't it? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You
Oh,
got a
without
lot
a
of
doubt.
knowledge to pull back on. I mean,
Without
I
a doubt.
didn't even realise that. Obviously, you've got. Well, I'm assuming people don't realise there's so many different dialects in China. You know what I mean? It is because sometimes, every now and then, you'll see that, you know, where you get different, like, guys speaking different dialects coming on the internet. I didn't realise, due to not ignorance or something, but like anywhere in the UK, you'll have a different dialect, and you know, you thought they would just speak, you know, Chinese, Cantonese, or whatever. But there is so many different dialects that even in the country, some of their own people don't even speak. So, what do you actually you use as a language to speak? Are you fluent in it? Oh,
No,
obviously you got to be
no,
fluent in it now.
I'm not. I'm
You
not
know,
fluent. I'm not fluent in Chinese. No, I'm conversational fluency. I can sit and talk about, you know, how are you? How's your mum and dad? Where do you live? You know, what did you have for dinner? What do you do as a job? That, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's very, very interesting that you bring that subject up, because I'm intending to do a podcast at some point on this. Maybe you and I can get together and do it, because they reckon, now you can't believe everything, but they reckon there are 1,600 dialects in China.
yeah,
Now, they are mutually unintelligible, right? Language, pretty much, or dialect in Chinese is called Hua. Now, you go to Shanghai, you have Shanghai Hua, Beijing Hua, Chongqing Hua. So you have all these different. They're almost a different language, but the characters, the writing is the same. Now, up until 1956, when they standardized what we know as Mandarin, which is Beijing Hua. And even they have they talk like farmers, you know, it's not Hua, it's Hua. Beijing Hua, right? They have this thing on the end, you know, and I can actually be in a room full of Chinese people talking, and I go, he's from Beijing, you know, because I can hear the R. But the point is that they were mutually unintelligible. And what happened was, in local schools, if you were in, you know, like where I am, the local dialect would be spoken in school, and all the teachers would give all the lessons in the local dialect, which meant if the kids grew up and they went somewhere else to another part of China, they couldn't understand what was being spoken, right? So in 1956, they standardized it. Now, a few months ago, I went to a city that I used to work in to catch up with some friends. When I came back here, I got no gas. I didn't know why. Now, what they'd done, they'd recently changed all these apartments from bottle gas to pipe gas. And what I didn't realize is that if you don't use the gas for a while, that the pressure builds up, and there's a little button on the meter, and it just pops, just trips
yeah,
off. So what you do is you just push it. But I didn't know that. So I went downstairs. I went to the guy on the gate, like the caretaker, and I rang my friend where I just come from, who's Chinese,
yeah,
and I said to her, "Look, just have a chat with this guy. I've got no gas, right?" And my Chinese wasn't good enough to let this guy know what was going
yeah.
on. So I put my friend on the phone, and they're chatting in Chinese, and she came back. She said, "No, I can't understand him because of his accent. They're both
Yeah.
talking Mandarin, but she said, Nigel, his accent is too strong. I can't understand him." Right. And I thought, wow. So then I got to thinking about the UK. Now, you know, you go down to London, mate. Oh, yeah. Nice to see ya. Geezer in the freezer. Right. And then you go down to Devon or Cornwall, all right, my birdie, how you doing? How you been? Or you go to Birmingham, yeah, I'm all right, mate. Pop round tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I'll put the kettle on, we'll have a nice cup of tea. Right? So you've got all these different accents. Where did they come from? They came from a local language, exactly the same as what is still you can still hear in China. I mean, I go to my old ex-girlfriend's place in that same city, and you know, we had a relationship for a while, and we're still really good friends. And I'll go around to her house or be invited around to her house for dinner, and they're sitting chatting away, and I can kind of join in with the conversation, but then they'll all jump into the local dialect, and I can't understand a fucking word, none of it, right? So there has to be a correlation between what I've witnessed here in China over the last 7 years and what you and I have both grown up with in the UK. Now, there are only two dialects that I can't understand in England. One is Geordie. If you've got a real deep Geordie accent, then I can't understand you. And the second one is Glasgow, if you've got a really deep Glaswegian accent. But they're the only two accents that I've ever, and apparently there's 44 in the UK, so we're told. They're the only two that I can't understand. But they're all, that's great, da. How's it going, mate? That's great, da. Liverpool. Yeah, or, yeah, okay. So I'm, you know, a pretty bad, a pretty bad attempt, but, you know, that's great, da. So I'm convinced, because there's no other explanation, Paul, as to why different people from different parts of the country have this totally distinguishable dialect or accent. Dialect is language, accent is the pronunciation. So at some point in the not so distant past, they must have had different languages. Martin Leaker on Flat Earth British, he told me that they've banned Welsh now from schools. You go to school and Welsh is gone in Wales, for Christ's sake. You can only learn English, but they're still going to talk with the, you know, there's lovely. They're still going to talk with a Welsh accent, but the language itself has been removed from schools. When I was at secondary school, I mean, I nearly said I learnt Latin. No, I didn't. I went to Latin classes, but we were taught Latin in school. That's all gone.
Yeah. It went like a year or two before I went to school. Latin. I'd have loved to. Obviously now you pick up a few words, but you'd have loved to, because obviously that's what they use in a lot of the spells and different things. And it always brings back to what we're actually saying about why have they got all these languages? Because it's designed that. If you think about it, if you've got a different dialect, how the hell are you going to get from A to Z? You're going to stay where you are. So it's a natural, not natural in a sense. It's an invisible prison.
Yeah.
You know, in each district, and that's what they've done, and it's a clever way.
well, the reason that they did it in China in 1956 was for commerce, was for trade, so people could trade with different towns and different cities, which makes perfect sense, right? It was purely and simply done for a commercial reasons. And maybe it was the same in the UK, but the UK is very small compared to, you know, somewhere the size of China. And the other thing, you know, we're all taught in the West that China's the bad guy, Russia's the bad guy. I worked with a guy in the last city I was in 3 years ago. He was from the UK, and he spent 13 years teaching English in Russia, and he loved every minute of it, bro. You know what I mean? It's not what we've been taught. It's not the big bad bogeyman. You know, life here is great, absolutely awesome. It's great, love it. But oh no, I'm not going to China. No, it's and yet many people in China, certainly young people, no, America's the bad guy. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. All this divide and
Yeah.
conquer.
It's
You know,
just a simple tool, isn't it? It's very effective, and that's why they don't have to change their playbook too much, because we as a community, we as a people, we as a person, or whatever you want to look at how we are, we do it for them. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? We don't. They just plant the little seed of this and doubt and different things and fear, and we run with it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
We don't anymore. We do not take a step back. Well, we do, and people who are watching always take a step back and assess the situation. We don't do that now. It's like from, I would say, in the UK, maybe just not long after the war, when you had the nuclear family and all that, and it's just degraded where you don't even speak to your neighbours, you don't say hi, you don't smile at people. I mean, I do. I hold the door open. I try and talk to many people as I can, and that's what they want to get away from. Where you do not trust your neighbour, where you don't trust anyone, so you are alone on your own, and you think you're meaningless.
all
When the
by
fact is,
design, all by
yeah,
design.
all by
Yeah,
design, and it's a clever, it's a
and
clever technique.
isn't it interesting how they use the word nuclear for the family,
Yeah,
and that a nuclear explosion is, you know what I mean? Even though they don't, if anybody thinks nukes exist, there's an awesome video. I think it's still on YouTube, called Duck and Cover, from the 50s, where if you hear the siren, then at school you get under the desk, you hide under the desk or under the bed, because there's going to be a nuclear explosion. It's called Duck and Cover. Right,
but
listen, bro.
well,
Yeah, go on. I was going to say we've been going for like an hour and something, so we'll continue our chat, but shall we wrap up the recording here? I think we've been going long
yeah.
enough to. We're going to lose some viewers. They're going to go, "Oh, it's 2 hours. I'm not watching that," kind of thing. It puts people off. So, anything you want to say before we finish?
I just want people. I always say on my videos, say smile, but always pay it forward. Just try and do one good deed a day, and that's what I say to people, because like everyone thinks being alone on your own, one, is insignificant. It's not. You try being on holiday and you got one mosquito, it do a lot of damage. It annoys you. It keeps you awake. And that's what we've got to do. That one person joining forces, paying it forward, becomes 2, 4, 6, 8, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah,
Do one good deed a day, and we're getting there. I'm seeing a shift. Even now, we're seeing so-called celebrities changing mindset. Whether it's done by design, it doesn't matter. But I'm seeing a shift in how people are. I believe, and this might sound, I believe the only problem we have is the community itself. Do you know what I mean? I'm seeing so many people fighting, egotistical, all done by design. If I always say to you, and you saw my stuff, if a channel is telling you don't watch another channel, for me that is the biggest no-no. You should never say anything. It's this, what we do is so hard. Do you know what I mean? It opened my eyes. It's unbelievable how people talk and react when you do a video, even though you'll put up, oh, it's a what if. It's just not fact. It's not meant to be taken as fact. It's just my opinion on what research I find. People still get insulted. You know what I mean? We have to just leave things to a side. We've got a common goal. We've got to make this world better for not just us, for our kids and grandkids and so on and so on. And just pay it forward. Get the balance, more of a balance. It's just skew with at the minute of too much negativity. So just pay it forward. And also a bit of shameless plug-in. Go and check out my channel.
yeah. I often put up a screenshot of yours, but I'll leave you. We'll finish the recording. Don't go away. We'll carry on. There's some of the stuff I want
I'm
to talk to
going.
you about. But there's a very, and people are going to say, oh, it's corny, but it's not. And sometimes the corny ones are the most profound. And it goes like this: we don't inherit the earth from our parents, we borrow it from our kids. And when you think of, you put that in perspective, you know, what's going on right now, if we don't do something, we're letting our kids down, we're letting our grandkids down.
Yeah.
This is our time. We came here for this, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop the recording here, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us, Paul. And we'll see you soon.